Hi, I'm Jim.
And I'm Audrey.
And we both love wine.
But we have some different views.
Which is why this series is called His
and Hers
Wine. All right, it's a holiday season.
Yes, it is.
Time for dinner parties.
Food, lots of food.
Lots of food, lots of guests over, right?
Yes, lots of food. Bring it on.
And we know our wine enthusiast friends and viewers are going to do a fantastic job matching the right wines with the right meals.
We're just going to have some fun because that's what's going to elevate that meal when you have great wine, great friends. Bring it on.
Now, is there a way they can turn that up to 11 and really wow their guests?
We've got some good ideas today. I'm not sure everyone has tried, but please do. And bring on the dessert wines when you bring on those holiday desserts.
Right. I think a lot of people think of dessert wines or sweet wines as a separate thing that you have maybe a little taste of it or a little glass of it, and then you bring something else out.
It's true. Some of those old movies, it's like the aperitif or, it's different. But they're designed to go with your dessert.
Right. So how do we start that? How do we know which, because there's a lot of different kinds of sweet and dessert wines. How do we know what goes with what?
That's true. We're going to do some experimenting for you today. So we'll give you some little guidelines on there. But first, how do the grapes become sweet? How do we make sweet wines?
All right. And for people who just want to jump to the wine, this is the science part. So you can skip ahead now.
Yes,
or
right.
You can listen to the science part. So
yeah, go ahead.
There's a couple of ways to make a wine sweet, and adding sugar to it is not one of the ways. The main thing is that grapes are the sugars and acids and water. Okay. And the more water you remove from the grape, the sweeter and the more acidic, right? The more intense the flavors are in that grape.
So they have some specific methods for doing that?
They do, okay? And the first way you may have heard is ice wine. Mm-hmm. Ice wine is exactly what it sounds like. They freeze the grapes, or they allow the grapes to freeze, and they pick them when they're frozen.
So it's not that you pour it over the ice?
No. No. You can do that if you want.
Okay, freeze the grapes.
Freeze the grapes, and what happens is the water freezes, they separate that, and what's left is your intense sugars and acids, and that really intense juice. What you get with that type of process is the bright, acidic, sweet flavors, a lot more pear, apricot, citrus fruits, in some cases even almost tropical fruits in that remain. Another method is the traditional method in France, and see if I can pronounce it right, the noble rot.
The noble rot.
Botrytis, right? This is a fungus.
Sounds great to me. Said it perfectly.
Perfect. Fungus that grows on the grape, and what that fungus does, other than look terrible, is it sucks the moisture out of the grapes as they ripen. And so over a longer period of time, they're being sucked dry by the fungus, and that leaves a very intense grape. And that's going to leave a very intense flavor that has ripened over time, whereas the ice is an immediate thing. It happens immediately.
Right. Grape
freezes, you remove it. This is something that's happening over time, so those flavors are going to be a little bit more mellow and very sweet and intense. Okay. Third method is something called raisinating. Raisinating is, well, what it sounds like. Yes. You allow the grapes to start to dry on the vine, and pick them later. Sometimes called a late harvest wine or raisinated wine. Yes. And those late harvest wines, more of the sugars have started to develop in the grapes as they start to dry out, so they get more intense, and they tend to produce a thicker type of almost caramel type of flavor to them, as opposed to the bright acidic tropical flavors. So you're getting a very different profile. Mm-hmm. The final method is to take a wine and not allow it to ferment fully, right? Because when you ferment, you take the sugars and you convert them into alcohol using the yeast. Right. But if we stop that process earlier and we have a sweet wine, it's low in alcohol. So what they do is they fortify that wine with distilled alcohol. And that's where you get a port or a sherry or something like that.
So when you hear the term fortified, they have added what you would say a whiskey. They have added an actual alcohol product to that wine. So not a grape base, but...
So you get both the sweetness and the alcohol level that you would get in a regular wine.
Right.
That's fortified. And that can be the ruby style, which is the fruitier, jammier style,
We're talking ports. So ports come in the ruby style or the tawny style. I particularly like the tawny myself.
Me too. I like this. Something we agree on.
Yes.
And that's more of the caramel.
It's a nutty kind of flavor, like a toffee.
Yes, exactly.
You know, really good. So I love that one. But there are other wines that are fortified, like we're going to try today, a sherry.
The sherry. And then there's Tokais and other types.
Mm-hmm.
But so ends our science portion of the
program. So for everybody who's fast forwarded now.
Okay, now we stop the science. Okay, so what are maybe some tips we can give people?
Well, you touched on some things about some flavor profiles. Mm-hmm. So of course you are kind of just naturally thinking if something has a little bit more of those citrus type of notes, or sometimes they have some flower notes to them, some lavenderish or other flower components that go well with a dessert. You can think about that just, generally speaking, if you had something that was a fruit pie, and would that actually go well with it? We're trying not to clash something. But also the nutty flavors, caramel and toffee, those you just naturally start thinking, what would you associate those flavors to be? Would it be chocolate? Would it be a cheesecake that you would put like a caramel topping? Maybe that would work well together. So use some of your instincts on that, and we're going to have fun trying and seeing what we like.
Right. In our setup here today, we've got a number of desserts that are very typical holiday desserts. We've got a fruit pie, in this case apple. We've got a cheesecake. Mm-hmm. We've got some fudge. And we've got some gingerbread cookies. And we're going to try our wines. Which you're smiling because this is going to be fun.
I've been looking at the gingerbread cookies, and they have these little fun faces on them. So yes, okay. Anyway,
all right. So we're gonna try the wines with each of those. All right. So the first one we have up is an ice wine from the Finger Lakes region.
Up a little bit north, it gets cold enough to get that iced.
Right. And when you're shopping, you may find that ice wines are more expensive.
They can be very pricey.
They can,
delicious.
And part of the reason is because you don't get them every year. You have to just happen to have a freeze at the exact right time and be able to pick the grapes at the right time to get them. So not every year, and when you do get them, they're wonderful. This is from the Finger Lakes region of New York. So this is an ice wine, so we're going to have those acidic fruit flavors. We're going to have tropical fruit flavors. What do you think this is going to pair with?
I'm actually expecting that it would go well with the apple pie that we have. And probably the cheesecake as well. So I'm not sure which one I'm going to prefer, but that's what my suggestion is.
Let's try the apple pie first.
Okay.
So a little apple pie. Mm-hmm. All right.
Okay.
Let's try a little taste.
A little bit of spice in the apple pie too, so.
Oh, yep, that goes.
It's nice.
It does go.
It's nice. You do want your wine to be sweeter, as sweet or sweeter than your dessert. So, some desserts are not as sweet. So do kind of think about that.
But those tropical fruit flavors with the acid of the apple pie, wonderful together.
I'm going right for the cheesecake.
You're going for the cheesecake from the origin. Yeah, it goes as well.
I think everything tastes. I think the apple pie was the better one out of those two for me.
That is, but I think for the same reason that you can pair fruits like blueberries and raspberries with a cheesecake, it will also take that tropical fruit acidic wine as well.
True. The beautiful ice wine, though. I definitely, if you haven't tried one, please do.
Yeah, absolutely.
This is wonderful.
All right. So now we move on to sauternes.
Yes, Sauternes. So this is from France. These are white grapes, and it is a white Bordeaux. So it is out of the Bordeaux region, but a white Bordeaux. Simeon, and they pronounce that slightly different in different ways, but that's the way I say it. Simeon. That is usually the main grape, but they'll have Sauvignon Blanc in there, some Muscadel. So a great little blend. Again, that's why Bordeaux blends.
And this is where that botrytis comes in.
Yes, this is the noble.
And as between the white ice wine and the sauterne, you're going to notice a much more mature flavor.
I like the way they can't say it's a rot. It has to be a noble rot.
It's a noble rot.
It's a noble rot.
It didn't happen on accident. We meant to do that.
That's right. The flavor profiles in here that you're going to get, though, are a little bit different. They're more honey notes, and you can definitely get some good floral notes out of this as well.
And that's a result of that process taking longer than the ice wine, which you're doing instantaneously. So let's go ahead. What do you think this is going to pair with?
I'm expecting it to go very well with the cheesecake. Again, I like the cheesecake, but I'm kind of curious to see about the gingerbread, perhaps.
All right, let's see if we can give that a taste.
Let's just see what we do.
So where are we going first?
I'm going to do the cheesecake first.
Okay.
Because the gingerbread's going to be spicier. I do like that.
I do like it. It's very different than the ice wine.
It is. It is. It's very different. And again, there are some other things that it might pair well with too, because it does have that little bit of a floral note to it. And again, cheesecake, you can put lots of different toppings. So I think it would go well with that.
Cheesecake is almost a nice creamy blank canvas.
Yes, it is.
All right, so let's try the gingerbread.
Okay.
And poor little guy's arms.
I know. I know. A lot of spices there. Better than I thought.
Isn't it?
That is better than I was expecting.
It is picking up that spice in the ginger and really kicking it up a notch.
Yeah, it's interesting because, you know, as we'd said, a good pairing elevates both. I thought the spice would be too much and kind of overpower, and it didn't. It actually kind of balances that out, smooths it out.
Smooths it out, but really heightens the flavor of that ginger.
Yeah, I like that.
I really like that too.
Yeah.
All right, so success there.
Success. Next
up, we have a port. In this case, it's a tawny port. It's a port that you and I got while we were traveling last year. And it's, in this case, a 30-year-old. Now, the thing about port, particularly tawny ports, is that as they age, they change in both color and flavor. And they get sort of richer, more caramelly, more smooth over the years. And depending on your budget, this is a 30-year-old port. This is part of the mid-range. You can get nice 5 and 10-year-old ports. You really notice a difference at about, I would say about 10 years to 20 years, and then 20 years to 50 years, and then beyond that. If you really have the budget, you can get some really fantastic 100-year ports, but be prepared to pay. And if you do pay for a 100-year-old port, you're probably not sharing it with your friends and neighbors.
And you sip on these.
Sip on these. These are
Knock them
sip.
back.
So let's go. I think this is going to go well. I think it's going to go well with the gingerbread, but I also think it's going to go well with that chocolate fudge.
Okay.
So let's try the ginger first.
All right.
We'll go ahead and give us a little bite of that. Whoops. There we go. Whoops. Okay.
Yeah. That did not do it for me.
Well, not as much. No, that didn't go as well as I thought it would.
No, it's not a clash, but that doesn't really go.
They're not heightening each other.
No, not at all.
Well, the cheesecake seems to be universal. Let's try the cheesecake.
I know. Honestly, what I'm thinking about is I've done cheesecake before with a chocolate ganache topping or with a caramel topping, even like a nut tort. You could do that, and it just seems like a match.
Yeah, that goes.
It goes.
That goes. That cheesecake really is a blank canvas.
It is. I liked the sauterne better with this as a plain cheesecake, but again, if you had a caramel sauce or some nuts, I think that might be a thing. All right, the chocolate.
A little fudge.
A little bit of fudge.
Right.
Now this is not a dark. This is not a dark chocolate, I believe.
Is it possible to have a little bit of fudge?
Not really. It is a darker fudge. It's not a milk chocolate.
That's nice.
It is nice.
That is nice.
It is nice.
All right, the last one we're going to try tonight is a sherry.
Okay.
Now, many people may have connotations of sherry as something their grandmother drank while they were cooking many years ago. But
yes.
That's really an outdated view. Sherry has really come a long way. And the sherries that they're producing now are really sublime, really spectacular. You look just, for example, at the color of that. I mean, it's like molasses.
It really is. So it is going to be a syrupy sweet that you're going to get. But again, you're sipping this. They used to, back in the day, the old movies, and they'd have sherry at night. they would have it as a nightcap, and the ladies would sip on that. So I do think about that with how thick and syrupy this is.
This is, in this particular sherry, it's a Pedro Jimenez from Spain, and so it's a Spanish product, and it's absolutely lovely. But this is a sipper. This is not one you go.
No, this is definitely.
All right, so what do you think this is going to go with? It's a rich, dark, syrupy, highly sweet.
I'm excited to have it against that fudge, personally, but I think we should try it with the gingerbread man, too.
I think it might go with the gingerbread, so let's try that.
Okay, let's try that first. Spiciness of this, maybe. Okay. That's nice.
That is nice.
It is nice. Now, again, you're sipping on it, but we're saying syrupy. It's almost a molasses type of flavoring that you're getting.
Very much, yeah. Very much a molasses type flavor. And it just pairs nicely with that gingerbread.
Yeah, that goes really well.
Better than I thought.
It does. Kind of like marshmallows in your hot chocolate.
You ready to try some chocolate with that?
Oh, yeah. Speaking of chocolate.
Speaking of chocolate, let's try a little chocolate.
We'll see how that goes. The sweetness level, it is just as sweet, but I think the gingerbread won the day for me with the sherry.
Well, I'll tell you what this did for me. As I said, it's a molasses kind of flavor.
Yes.
When you put that with the chocolate, it changes. It's almost a coffee kind of flavor. I don't know if you get to try that again, because I think there's almost like a coffeeness, a richness that comes out that I think is very, very interesting.
Which is nice when it softens it a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can see that when you get them right together, it is nice.
It is nice, and it's giving the only way I can describe it is coffee.
Okay.
Like a rich cup of coffee.
So I still think for me, the winner was the gingerbread with the sherry. I did love the ice wine with the apple pie.
Ice wine with the apple pie. Port with the chocolate.
And the sauternes with the cheesecake. And again, you know, the cheesecake kind of goes with a lot of things. I did like it with a lot of things. And I would love the port with the cheesecake if it had a great topping on it.
Right. And the port certainly with a pecan pie.
That is the best.
That's what we've had before, and that is the bomb.
Yes, that's the best to me.
All right, so when you've got your guests over, you've had a nice meal, have a little break, and then you bring out your dessert tray, bring out a little matching wine with it, and you can really blow people's minds.
Absolutely.
All right.
All right. So no matter what your view is on whatever it is you're tasting, just enjoy.
Just enjoy.